Hi everyone, thanks for coming. We're going to get started now. So I thought I'd introduce myself. I'm Sarah and I'm sort of chairing this, and I'll chair the Q&A at the end. But before we introduce you to Seb, we've just got a few housekeeping things to get started with. Hopefully you all know that this is being recorded. So if you do have to drop out, or you know someone who wanted to come and signed up but couldn't make it, or you just wanted to go back through it, then you'll be sent that recording in a couple of days, so that's all good. There is time for questions at the end, and also thank you to everyone who who sent us some pre-webinar questions. We really appreciate that. We got a lot of them. And if you have any questions throughout, just put them in the Q&A section, and we will have time for some at the end, but we expect quite a lot. So sorry if we don't get through your question. There will be a sort of an email address that you can email questions to, and there will be also some hosts in the chat answering questions when they can. So yeah, I think that's all of our housekeeping. So I'd like to introduce you to Seb Taylor, who graduated from the University of Leeds back in 2012, and he is a Principal Consultant and Team Leader at Pod Talent. So welcome, Seb. Thanks for coming.
Very much for inviting me, and hello everyone. So look, thank you very much for inviting me today. As Sarah mentioned, I'm going to run through a presentation today around the 5 things I wish I'd known after graduating. We'll cover some key points, and as mentioned, we'll cover some Q&A at the end, but do feel free to put any questions through as we go through. So I'd like to start with who am I? Ben Stiller so aptly described it. So who am I? I'm a Principal Recruitment Consultant. I work for Pod Talent, a specialist supply chain recruitment agency. I have an almost a decade's worth of experience in both recruitment and supply chain. I work with the likes of Kraft Heinz, Coca Cola, M&S, Gousto, Ocado, and Sweaty Belly, to name a few. I currently manage a team who recruit from graduates through to C-suite. And my role is to work with market-leading businesses to design, develop, and support their talent and recruitment strategies, building high-performing teams. So what are we going to look to cover today? So today we're going to cover 5 key points. These are how to write a CV and top tips. How on earth do I find a job? What should I expect in an interview? What the hell is a recruiter? And I've graduated, now what? The first of our 5 is CV writing. I hope this GIF accurately summarizes most people's feeling to CVs. Nobody likes writing CVs. Well, not many of us anyway. It's difficult, time-consuming, and sometimes requires some serious thought. You must recall your own old work experience, some of which are good memories, some of which are bad, and if you're like me, some you'll struggle to remember. So out of all of you, who feels comfortable in writing a CV? Catherine, if you could have the first poll, please. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on this. So have you already written a CV and you're confident with it? Are you writing one, but not so confident on it, or you've never written one before? Please vote now. So we will look, so you're aware, to run through a couple of these for all levels, but it's really good to understand where you guys sit. I know there's a number of you who will be looking to. So interesting. So we've got 76% have written one but not confident on. 22% have already written one. That's perfect. And that's really good to hear that most of you, 2%, have already written one. So hopefully this will give you a good idea of how to set one up. So first things first, you need to get into the right frame of mind. This is going to take some time, so don't try and rush your CV. Treat it like an important piece of work. Lock yourself away in a quiet place where you've got enough time to dedicate it. You then want to look at how you're structuring your CV. So this is relatively straightforward. You'll find a lot of templates online. Word is particularly useful, I've found, and the CV will differ slightly. If you have a more creative background, I would suggest it's a different CV to someone with a more of a science background, for example. You want to include all the important information, but you don't want to leave it, you don't want it to be too wordy or leave the reader feeling bored. I've seen good, bad, and plain ugly CVs. So I would suggest laying out your CV such as this. First is a summary of you and your experience. This could be something like a passionate, dynamic, and driven individual with a strong work ethic, people management skills, and excellent project management. Someone recently stated on a CV to me that they were a bit of an oddball. Now, that for me immediately resonated, not necessarily with me, but it felt unique. So you want to try and grab the reader's attention. You then want to go into a summary of your career aspirations. So something along the lines of you're specifically interested in working for a fast-growing, sustainable business with a value-driven culture. Then lead on to your education. So degree in chemical engineering from Leeds University, for example. Any specific skills such as Python, fluent in English or French, or you're very good on the harmonica. Then you want to go into your experience, which I'll go into a bit more detail on, your interests, and you want to include these interests, which I'll go into a bit more detail. Very much brings your CV to life, so make sure you include this. So I mentioned work experience. Now, work experience is obviously a key part of your CV. Just remember that your work experience doesn't have to relate to the role that you're applying to. There's an incredible amount of transferable skills. Make sure that you are going to highlight these key areas. So I'd suggest work in reverse chronological order. Your most recent role should be at the top. List your employer, date of employment, month, year, and job title. Also, if the business you work for is not that well known, I'd always suggest giving a quick summary of the business. This is incredibly useful to both employers and recruiters. Then finally, I'd list your responsibilities in sort of 1 to 2 lines, and then your key achievements. You can break this down into bullet points as well. I think sometimes it reads quite nicely if you just have your responsibilities and then key achievements, but it's completely up to you. The key thing is to describe those. Next is onto your education. You will obviously all have a degree, and you'll want to describe that on your CV. I would also suggest including your dissertation if you did one. It's quite interesting sometimes the relation your dissertation might have to the job you're applying for. Just always include it. It's also a talking point in a CV. If the hiring manager has done something similar, it's a great way to build some rapport. I'd finally also add in sort of any education and training, whether that's IT skills, systems, languages, project management skills, or even first aid, for example. And then finally, interests. So this is really important. It really brings your CV to life, and it's much more important than you think. And this can be anything. It doesn't need to be specific around the role you're applying for or what you've done. I've had CVs which have interest in reading, mountain biking, and Pokemon Go. Probably wouldn't use the last one, but it opens it up. I'll also be sharing some helpful advice on CVs in more detail via leads after this forum as well. Here are my final tips. Do get someone to proofread your CV. I know that sounds straightforward, but it's incredibly surprising how many mistakes I see and spelling errors that I get from CV. So just make sure you get someone else to read it. It's also how it reads through. Do make sure your CV is aesthetically pleasing. It should be easy to read and flow well. Don't use random fonts, for example, or colors, or potentially images. It's unnecessary and sometimes makes it CV hard to navigate. It is good to be a bit creative in your CV, and I wouldn't say not to put pictures in. We just want to make sure they're right. Also, do make sure you have a professional email address related to your name. It's Brittany Bitch doesn't look great to a new employer, unless, of course, you're working for Brittany. Finally, don't waffle on. CV sentences should be short and snappy and avoid paragraphs of information. Don't fall into the trap as well of using tiny fronts so you can write more. A CV is a short summary designed to sell your experience. They're not looking for a biography. In terms of a graduate CV, you're probably looking at around 1 to 2 pages max. There's no issue in the future with CVs being longer, but I think 1 to 2 pages should be easily sufficient for what you're looking for. So on to our second of 5. This is around job searching. So I know a number of you will be looking at this now or have already started. Taking the obvious, there are so many amazing and wonderful careers open to you. I'm going to share with you some of the main options that you can go into, along with some helpful tips. But first, out of interest, how many of you have already started job searching? It would be good to understand where you guys are at. So have you been searching for a while, just starting, or haven't started yet? I'm going to go through some options for all of you, but it'd be great to understand where you guys are up to. I'll give you a minute. Oh, fantastic. Well, interestingly, it's sort of split across all the 3. So we've got 40% for that you've been searching for a while, 35% just started, and 26 haven't started. So look, I can say that at the moment, the market is incredibly buoyant. There are a number of jobs. So just to give you a quick stat, I think there was 127% more jobs in August this year compared to February last year, so pre-pandemic as well. So there's a huge amount of jobs out there. So don't worry if you're still searching and you're hit some challenges. I'm going to give you some advice on that as well. So firstly, what options are open to you? So there are a huge number of resources available to you. The biggest mistake I probably see when people are job hunting is they're only using 1 or 2. I also suggest being creative, and it will be more fun. I know how painful it is sometimes to apply for many jobs and not get an answer back. Utilizing as many resources as possible, this will give you the best chance. The first of these, which I'm sure a number of you will know about, is job board. So these are very useful, and do make sure you sign up to a few and make sure you register with the correct details as well. They will ensure that you are being shown to recruiters, but also when people are looking on the site as well. CV Library, for example, flags new roles that might fit with you as well. So definitely make sure you're adding to a number of those. Next up is job fairs. So Leeds, Sarah will go into some more detail around the one that Leeds runs, for example. But there are multiple graduate fairs, many now virtual as well, but some still in person. These are sometimes with the likes of major FMCGs, but many will focus on your specialism. Do look and research those. Next is recruiters. So to be honest, I didn't know what a recruiter was when I left uni, which is ironic because I now am one. But they can be invaluable. Not only can they give you great support and insight into the market, but they'll also be able to get the inside track to many businesses. They will send your CV as part of maybe 3 or 4, rather than you being part of 100 applications. Internal recruiters in a business will also appreciate you making a direct post, as it shows your eagerness. And finally, networking. So networking, sometimes a lot of people miss. You may not think that you have a network that's worth sort of expanding and growing, but it definitely is. It's always worth knowing where your friends and families are, not just for now, but for the future. So just to give you an example, when I was younger, I spent a day in a stock trader's office, if I liked it. It didn't take, unfortunately, but if there's something you're genuinely interested in, find someone who does that and ask their advice. Ask them if you can shadow them for a day. Ask them if you can have a chat. Don't be afraid to ask. People love talking about themselves, as you may have noticed. And finally, LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, I thought I'd mention this separately. As well as having its own job applications, it's also the largest business database. You can reach out to people you're interested in and ask for advice or promote yourself via the feed. I honestly, if you haven't already, is make sure you've set up your LinkedIn, make sure it's clear, and it's going to be very similar to your CV, so you won't need to double up on work. So my final job searching tip. Job searching is not the same as Tinder. You will get rejected a lot. This isn't me being negative, but it is a reality. Jokes aside, jokes aside, the roles that you will be applying for, you may get rejected, and that may not be because you haven't read the job ad correctly, but because they may be looking for someone different. So don't be disheartened. I know how painful it is to be rejected and not get through, but remember, you only need to be offered one. So please just keep at it. Also, be creative. If something is not working, don't bang your head against the wall. Try other avenues. Change up your CV, speak to your network, look at the options I've mentioned. Job searching can be incredibly frustrating, but resilience is key. As I mentioned, you only need to be offered once, and honestly, once you get through those, you'll know how good it feels as well. Finally, be open to what you want. So this is quite interesting. So a lot of the people I speak to, they're very open, but they're not 100% what it is. They're not 100% what it is they're looking for. I would say pick the 3 things that are most important to you. So, for example, if you want to go and work for a leading pharmaceutical firm developing, let's say, next-gen treatment, why not look at the smaller, more innovative pharma businesses? There are many, and they may be able to open up opportunities you wouldn't have thought of looked. Or if it's the fact that you're very open and what you really want is growth and development, why not look for high growth organizations or ones with really strong learning and development? What I'm saying is be open, don't reduce your opportunity. So we've now run through CV writing, finding a job, and I now want to talk about the interview questions. You've managed to find the role of your dreams and you're now on the way to the interview, either in person or over video. You arrived on time, researched the company well, and after the pleasantries, you begin the interview begin. So what should you remember when going for these interviews? So be yourself. They've already seen your CV. They want to know the real you. You've made it past the first hurdle, and they'll be wanting to know more about you. Everyone gets nervous, but make sure you own who you are. Don't lie. Very obvious one. But what you want to do is be clear on what you have and haven't done. Employers are going to look to see where your strengths are, but also where your weaknesses is. They want to understand your gaps. They want to understand where they can develop you. So just be really open about it. Just like buying a house, it's all about research, research, research. This not only enables you to understand the company, but it also helps you find what you're passionate about. I've spoken to candidates who initially aren't necessarily interested in a position, but after looking through the website and their values and their products, they've become more passionate, and that shows through in an interview. This will also allow you to follow up with excellent questions at the end. I'd also look to review the job description and look for ways it relates to you. So when you applied, you will have already looked at this, but this could be a number of days or even weeks afterwards. So make sure you check the job description. Read through the key criteria and where you fit into this. Look at the key requirements. What have you done that's similar to this? I'd also advise looking at the company's values and how you demonstrate this as well. Finally, never don't have questions. It shows that you're interested. It shows that you're keen. Just imagine going on a date and you ask your date all these thought-provoking and interesting questions, and when it's their turn, they say, "Check, please." How would you feel? Just don't do it. I've seen great candidates fail at a final interview because they haven't had this. So I know I've given an overview of interview questions, but I'm really interested to understand the types of questions you are most worried about answering. Kathleen, could we have the next poll, please? Thank you. So what types of questions are you most worried about answering? So I'm going to give you a definition of these in case for those of you that don't know. So you have competency-based questions. So these are questions like, give me an example of when, or give me an example of when you've overcome a challenge. Questions about yourself, such as, what is your greatest weakness? What do you want to be? Or questions describing your achievements and your responsibilities. I'd be really keen to understand what questions you're most worried about, and I can try and answer some of those as well. Interesting. Okay, perfect. Okay, interesting. So the competency questions seem to be one of the biggest ones. I'm going to run into that in a second, actually, so I can give you some examples around that. For those of you that ask around questions about yourself, the question is more going to be around knowing thyself. So when they ask those questions, you need to answer honestly and openly. They want to understand where you see your weaknesses, where you want to go. They want to see that you have a view of the future. So let me go on to the next slide, which I'll give you some detail on. So in terms of those competency questions, give me an example of when, or show me when you've overcome challenges. The thing to always remember the bar. So a number of you will have heard of this before in terms of STAR technique. I've always found it, ironically, much more memorable as the bar. So what you want to do is whenever answering a competency-based question, use this. So you want to describe the background. So this is the why. What happened? What happened before? Why did it need to change? Action. What did you do? What did you involve? What steps did you take? Finally, the result. What happened after? Try to give something quantifiable as well. If you can, it's great to be able to say we improved, X percentage or cost saving of Y, but you can also say this enabled us to have greater visibility of X or enabled us to complete Y. The key for this is if you remember these background, action, results, remember the bar, you'll be able to confidently answer these questions. And I would make sure, again, there'll be some links coming around and they'll give you an example of these sort of questions. I'd make sure when going to an interview is you've written down your answers for those using this. So we've run through CV writing, we've run through finding jobs, we've run through interviews. Next is what is a recruiter? So the penultimate point. As mentioned, I had no idea what a recruiter was and what they could do for me. They are an incredibly useful tool and they're an invaluable source of information. And contrary to what you may have heard, they are totally free for you. You will not pay for them. If you do, they're not the recruiter you should be dealing with. You will also have recruiters based in specific industries, and no matter how niche your field is, there will be a recruiter in that space, trust me. So seek them out. They'll be best placed to help you with your given career, be able to give you CV advice, and also be able to give you advice on your next step. You do also have internal recruiters. So these are people that are based within a company who recruit across multiple departments. Always good to connect with those, especially if you're really passionate about a particular business. So what can they do for you? So there's a number of things that they would be able to do and support you. I generally would suggest the one thing I wish I knew was that recruiters existed in my space. So firstly, they can offer you CV and career advice. They will have looked through hundreds, if not thousands of CVs, so will know what doesn't work, especially for your area as well. They'll also be able to give you advice on career steps they'll need to take and ultimately consult for you. They'll be able to give you the inside track as well. What that means is that they are going to go directly to hiring managers. They'll be able to cut through the noise. They'll be able to give you some market insights, things like salary banding, how busy the market is. They'll also have a really good idea of where the demand is and what businesses are thriving. So if you're looking at starting a career in a specific industry, for example, you can speak to recruiters around where the demand is now. So for example, software development is huge. So supply chain, very much a focal point. There's also a lot around innovation and development. Finally, they have a really broad job offering. So a recruiter will work with multiple clients across multiple roles. So if you speak to them, they may actually be able to talk to you about roles that you wouldn't have initially thought of. So I definitely suggest contacting one, and a good recruiter will be a friend for life. So we've now run through those 4 points, and we have the final one, which is, I've graduated, now what? So I know that some of you will already have a very clear vision on what you want to do. Some will not, and both are equally as good. Here, I'll run through some helpful tips, as well as sort of insights from me as well. So I think first off, what are the options? There's a huge amount of opportunities out there. The first of those, the most obviously, is graduate scheme. These are usually offered by larger businesses, and they offer a great experience. You'll usually work in a rotation, so you'll go across the business, and it means you get to touch base with a number of different parts and then find what you're passionate about. I've said this here as the normal job. So there's a huge amount of opportunity, and many businesses really value a degree. They're less interested necessarily, as a broad sort of spectrum in terms of what your degree was in, but the degree shows a lot of willingness to learn and develop, and a lot are not so focused on what the degree is. You could also study a postgraduate degree. You could extend your learning and develop yourself further. You could also, as many people have, start a business. If you have an idea that you think is great, now is the perfect time to try. The UK government has many schemes to support entrepreneurs, such as Kickstarters. And I think now would be a perfect time for you to try that side hustle, that opportunity that you've thought of for some time. It will be an incredible learning experience. I've done something similar previously before. Fortunately, not worked out fantastically, but it was a great learning experience. So if you have an idea, do it. Of course, there is a final option. You can go traveling. Why not? You've had 3 or 4 years of very hard work. The pandemic has stopped us being able to explore the world, and you have the rest of your lives. Any of these options can be right, and none are wrong. It's all about you and your own pace. So my final thoughts. You don't need to know what you want to do right now, and that's okay. There are so many people that I went to uni with who've now been incredibly successful. They run their own businesses. I've got a friend, for example, who's now got a team of about 50 people, and he had no idea what he wanted to be. It doesn't matter that you don't know right now. That's the part of the journey, and it's exciting. You're also not alone. I've given you multiple resources that you can reach out to, but there are so many opportunities out there at the moment. So just feel like, go out to your network, speak to people, find your passion, but remember, you're not alone. There's always someone who can support. Don't compare yourself to others. As mentioned, I had a friend who initially was starting and thinking SEO and then started his own business. You all move at different rates, and it doesn't matter that that's the case. So just keep going and believe in yourself. It's about you. It's not about everyone else. The choice you make now doesn't need to be your choice forever. I've changed. So just to give you a background, so I used to run events in Leeds, so the O2 Academy warehouse, it's still going, and I know high flyers as well. I then moved into logistics and then into recruitment. I've changed careers in my late 20s, completely different sector, and you're never too old, too young, too inexperienced, too experienced to make that change. You have the opportunity now to try everything you want. And if you're going to fail spectacularly, try something new. That's the way you learn, and that's the way you grow. Don't let fear hold you back. A final thought, as I mentioned, I work for Pod Talent, a specialist supply chain recruitment agency. We are actually hiring for both graduate recruitment agents, where you'll work on a broad number of client base, across startup, large FMCG, and you'll recruit and build high-performing teams. But we also have recruitment opportunities within supply chain, and that's very broad. That's across the entirety of supply chain, whether that be logistics, customer service, supply chain tech. There's a broad number. So if any of you are interested in exploring either a role in supply chain or a role in recruitment, do feel free to reach out to me directly. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you really enjoyed it as much as I have. And thank you again, Leeds Uni, for inviting me back. I'd also like to thank the whole team for Tom and Megan especially, and Sarah and Kathleen and everyone else for really helping me along with this. And it's been fantastic. I hope that's been useful to you guys. And I wish you all the best. Sarah, I think we're now going to go on to some questions.
Yeah, well, first of all, just thanks very much for that. That was great. I mean, I know I learned a lot, so I'm sure everyone else will have found that really useful. So we're going to get started with the Q&A. Thanks to everyone so far who have sent in questions on the Q&A function at the bottom. If you want to sort of vote up other people's questions that you find interesting, that's really useful for us, so that we make sure that we're getting to the questions that everyone wants to be answered. So I'm going to start with a pre-submitted question. from someone called Alice. So hi if you're on the call. So Alice said, what's a creative but still professional way to present yourself and get noticed and stand out?
Great question, Alice. I generally think it's really important to show. I mean, if we're talking, it's twofold. I'm not sure if you mean in an interview or in a CV. So I think if we're looking at the CV, I think it's very important to have that clear line at the top describing you and give an idea of you, as well as giving key achievements of what you've done. If it's around being creative, but in a professional way, is find different ways of approaching people. I saw something the other day that someone sent to a office a box of donuts with his CV in the top. That, for example, that's a professional way, and I promise you they will have looked at their CV. So just try something new. If there's a business you're incredibly passionate about, just try things along those lines. You can reach out to people on LinkedIn as well. So if there's a hiring manager at their business that you're looking at, then you can reach out to them on LinkedIn. And as I mentioned, people do like talking about themselves.
Great, thanks, Seb. We've got a question that's from an anonymous attendee. Any advice for people who aren't sure about what career path to take? I'm a politics graduate, but I'm sure there's others will be in a similar position. Thanks.
Can you just repeat that, Sarah?
So it's just about sort of not knowing what to do if you don't know what to do, basically.
Yeah. So it is a really, really good question, and I know a number of you will feel this way. I think the advice I can say is try everything. The more you try, the more you'll learn what you like. As I mentioned, I've gone from events to logistics and supply chain into recruitment. I learned as I went through that the thing I really enjoy is like talent strategy and supporting people through their careers. And that's where I came from. So I think try as many things, talk to as many people as you can. And I know it's really hard, but then go and try those things. So I mentioned about going for a day in a stockbroker, for example. Why not go and try a day in something that you think you might be interested in? You don't need to, it's not that you need to know what it is, you want to try those things.
Great, thank you. Just if you think your questions aren't being answered, some are being answered by people typing answers. So just make sure if you're looking at your question, it's just for everyone. And also if you're sending them in on the chat, if you could put them on the Q&A function, that would be great. We've actually had quite a few questions about getting in touch with recruiters. How do you find the right one? What's the best avenue to go down? So if you could go into that, that'd be great.
So I mean, I would say Google, to be perfectly honest with you. But I think it would be what your specialism is, and then type in recruitment. So there are a number of businesses that cover full recruitment, for example. So they cover everything, but if you type in whatever your specialism and then recruitment, there will be multiple of those. You'll be able to read reviews as well. Again, I would also, if you are looking at a specific specialism, if you know somebody who's involved in that area as well, you can message them and say, look, I want to speak to a recruiter. Who do you use? There's no harm in asking that as well. And that means you get that recommendation as well. It's a really good question, but it's very much a research base. Like I said, there will be specialisms, I promise you, no matter how niche. My colleague is currently working on a chemical scientist role for battery engineering, for example. And I can say that title, and that's about all I know. So there will be niche recruitment agencies for you. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think that answered quite a lot of people's questions. We've also got a system called Agency Central on My Career.
No, that's external. Sorry.
And so the next question we've got is, how can I secure a job without work experience? Sort of nervous about not having a full CV.
Yeah. It's a really good point. So I think it depends on the level of your work experience. Because if you have absolutely none and you haven't worked on a bar or anything along those lines, I've recruited people with no experience. All they've had is the graduate. One of them is going into a high growth tech startup this week, actually. So it's not around necessarily having the experience. It's around describing what you've done outside of your own personal. So if you've led projects within your degree, for example, if your dissertation was, you had to go and speak to 3 different professionals, or you had to go to the government and speak to those sort of people, not just around the work experience, it's around your experience. What have you done in terms of project management, driving change, those sort of things? You will have worked on projects that aren't work-based as well. So I think it's just around fleshing those out a bit more. So don't worry about it. The people who are looking for graduates aren't necessarily going to be looking for the work experience.
Thank you. This is another pre-submitted question from Harris. So what kind of mentality should someone who is in sort of early career stage, is searching for a first-time job, have?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, Harris, thank you for asking that. So I think the key thing is resilience. I remember when I first started sort of applying, I was applying for multiple jobs and in different areas, and sometimes in areas that weren't really the roles I was looking for. It therefore felt like I wasn't getting the interviews or feedback because of the amount I was going for. But what you have to understand is you're now trying to find the role for you. So I would make sure you keep that resilience. I'd make sure you keep the passion. But I'd also, as I mentioned in my presentation, like mix up how you do it. If you're sat on CV Library for 48 hours, it's going to be painful. So try different things. Try LinkedIn, try doing posts. There was the guy who stood outside Waterloo train station with a thing saying, I've got a master's degree in X and I'm looking for this job. Like, just try different things. But the key thing is around resilience. I made a joke earlier about like not hearing back, and unfortunately you may not hear back, but it's just around keep going. As I mentioned, you only need to be offered once. That's all you need.
Thank you. This is a question from Casey. So how much should you know about a company or an industry when you start your applications?
So I would say, so Casey, I'd probably, it depends what you mean by it. So if you're applying for a role because you like the business, I would always say to do a little bit of research, but we're not talking hours. 15, 20 minutes, check that the values align with what you want, check the role and the job description is what you're looking for as well. The research probably comes at the interview stage. So I just make sure that the roles you're applying for are ones that you're interested in, rather than a shotgun approach, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. This is a question from Nikita. How do you gain experience for another job if you're currently working in a different field?
Nikita, good question. I think it very much depends on the industries that you're trying to go from and to. There are multiple extracurricular activity, for example, like you can do evening classes. You can also speak to your employer. If you're, depending on what you do, and you can say, look, I want to develop in this area, you can ask for potentially an afternoon off. Time is of obviously importance, and so you want to make sure that you're balancing both your own work and what you want to do. Sometimes it is around the fact that you will need to put in the extra hours to get to where you need to be, or you can make the jump and you can look to move into a role potentially within that industry that can give you that experience. I hope that answers it.
We have had a lot of questions about working in the UK if you're an international student working abroad, and I know that that's maybe not quite your specialism, so if you could answer this one broadly and then point people in a good direction. So what are some tips for international students applying for jobs in the UK?
Yeah,
that's from Clara.
Hi, Clara. So to be open, like there's a lot of complexity around sponsorship and people working within the UK, especially since Brexit as well. I think I definitely speak to individuals such as yourself, Sarah, at the sort of careers team in terms of what options are open. There are businesses that actively will say they offer sponsorship. It will depend, to be honest, where you're coming from as well. and what the role is. I wouldn't necessarily be the best place to describe that to you, but I think the key thing is look for businesses that are going for sponsorship, for example.
We've had a question from Rose saying, are my options limited if I get a 2-2?
So just to be open, I got a 2-2. So there's nothing wrong with it. I think, if I'm honest, I don't think the options are as limited as they once were. I think, to be honest, when I came out, I think they potentially were. There are some businesses that will say you need a 2-1 and above, but I wouldn't say that should stop you from moving out. If you're talking about in the future as well, it's definitely not. I know a few businesses who ask the question, but predominantly 5-6 years down the line, they won't be asking you the sort of what your degree was. I think if you are worried, if you have a question about applying, still apply. I would also then reach out. Did they specify 2-1s, for example? So I work with clients who specify 2-1s and above, and I've placed people who. So it's not so much around that. I think sometimes it's just around a grading path for that. So yeah, your options aren't limited. Like I said, I got a 2-2 and I'm doing it.
That's good to know. We've had a question from Kemry, and I'm really sorry if I've pronounced that wrong. Should a graduate CV look different from a final year's CV?
Yes, so thanks for submitting this. I did have a look at when it was submitted. To be honest, no. They're very similar in terms of what your experience should be. Your final, your graduate CV will probably include your grade. It will probably include a bit more about your dissertation, but overall, I'd keep them pretty much the same. I think it's just clear around following the points I mentioned around structure of your CV.
We have had a very relevant question from Catherine about working from home.
Okay.
So how do you approach this with a potential employer if you would rather go into an office when applying for a job?
So I would always say ask about it from the outset. So it's a very different world to where we were a year ago. I think a lot of businesses are looking at hybrid models at the moment. That's pretty much the trend. Somewhere around 2 to 3 days in the office and then 2 days out. But most businesses are quite flexible as well. So I think just making sure you answer it from the outset. Ask it from the outset as well. Just be open. I think the thing I would make sure is to have the reason as to why you want to work from the office. Because it depends again what industry is. If it's because you want to be around people who can learn, they can potentially say, well, actually, we can do 3 days, but we can put you with a buddy or something along those lines. A number of businesses I know, for example, are putting people in 5 days a week for the first year and then looking at going to hybrid. But I think, just be clear from the outset.
Thank you. I know we've talked a lot about CVs, but we've had a question from Eloise about how to write an effective cover letter. So what do you look for in a cover letter?
Yeah, so I think cover letters are a really interesting question. I think what people think of as a cover letter is about 2 or 3 paragraphs, for example. I would steer away from that. I think a cover letter, you can do it as one of 2 ways. You can either do it as a short sort of 2 to 3 line introduction. So, hi, this is me. This is probably quite similar to the start of your CV. But you want to explain to them. The key thing is why you're writing to them. So you're writing to them on X. Why you're interested. So give some examples of, I'm really impressed with what you did in, read the news and say, really impressed with what you did it last month for blah, blah, blah. And then also try to relate yourself to the job description or the business. I think keeping it short and sweet as well. Also, the thing I can promise you with a cover letter, if you're emailing it, always follow up. Just because they haven't replied doesn't mean they're ignoring you. It just means they may have missed it. Always follow up. If you're doing that proactive approach for anything, always do a follow up. It's not rude. They won't hate you for it. To be honest, I think of the work I do, about 60% of the work I get comes from doing follow-ups. All candidates.
Thanks for that, Seb. We've had a question from Jordan. So advice if you're feeling demotivated as a recent graduate in a new job that's not what you expected.
Yeah, really good question. I think a lot of people have this issue. So I think the first thing would be to try and resolve what the issue is. So if you haven't already, is speak to your line manager, articulate your concerns as well. If you're not being fulfilled, are there other projects you can work on? Is there room for development? Is there room for growth? Have that conversation. Also, don't speak to your line manager, but speak to other people in the business. People love being mentors. Well, most love being mentors. So there could be somebody who's more senior, like really senior. We're talking like 4 runs, for example, above yourself. Ask them and say, look, I want to grow, I want to develop. Is it something you can help with? They could have a chat with you once a month, for example. Ultimately, though, if the role is not right, then you probably need to be looking for something else.
We've actually had quite a sort of related question from Helen in the Q&A. So are companies still wary of job hoppers? She recently graduated from her master's degree and it wasn't the right field for her. So would a company question why she did an entire master's in one thing and is now going into something completely different?
Yeah, so I describe job hoppers as probably moving around from jobs to job, but it's an interesting take on it. I wouldn't think so, to be perfectly honest. I think it's the thing with any of these sort of changes is being able to describe the reason why. For example, you want to be able to say, look, I did this, I thought I was interested, but actually it's not really what I was interested in. I think just being very clear that then what you are now doing is what you're interested in and being able to sort of back that up. But I wouldn't be that concerned by it. But I would, if you went to an interview, I'd probably flag it. I always talk about the sort of M&M scenario, always bring the bad stuff up or any concern, you know what I mean? Then they can't. And I think that's what I would suggest doing. Probably not in a wrap.
This is another pre-submitted question. Where's it gone? Oh no. I know networking can be quite scary. What's an effective way of networking? Is there a way that's good and a way that's bad?
Yeah, I completely understand. Networking, especially when you first start, is quite scary because you try to talk to people. The best way I can say is ask for advice, because people will be interested in sharing their insights. So don't ask just broadly, hi, I'd like to chat because I'm interested in your business. Say, look, I'm really interested in getting into the world of, I don't know, pharmaceuticals, marketing. And I've seen you progress really quickly, and I'd be really interested to speak to you on how you've progressed and any advice you could give to me entering the market. I quite like LinkedIn for these sort of things, but also anything around like network fairs and such along those lines as well. Don't be afraid to do it. You'd be surprised. I bet if you sent 5 messages, you'd probably get 3 back.
Okay, I think we're coming to sort of the final few questions now. So if you've got one that you want really answered, please send them in now. So this sort of comes into the resilience thing, but after applying everywhere possible, I'm unable to get a job. What should I do?
Yeah. No, look, and I think especially like last year, for a lot of people, I think, and without knowing specifically what you're applying to, is I would have a look at what roles you're applying to. So are you applying for the right level roles, for example? Are the roles you're applying for, do they match your remit? If it's the fact that you are, and you've already checked that, and you are applying for the right roles and you feel like you're a good fit, I'd look at rewriting your CV and just doing a complete revamp. One thing I suggest to people last year was having 3 or 4 CVs that they then applied different roles with. And then what that means is you can actually see which one you get most success with. I think also like just hang in there. Like there are a number of roles out there. I do think also like I mentioned around looking at those 3 key things. So what are the 3 things that are most important to you? And focus on those and see if you can broaden your horizons a bit more as well. You can also talk to a recruiter. Like if you're really struggling with that, then having that conversation with the recruiter around, I've applied for these roles and I'm not getting it. That recruiter might be able to say, well, the reason is because you need a chemical engineering degree and you may not have one for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So this is going to be our final question. So if you thought your question hasn't been answered yet, there's going to be some email addresses in the next few slides. So if you want to send them through there, or some have been answered in the Q&A function, so just have a look back. So this is from Clara. Wonder if it's the same one from earlier, who knows? So this is, how did you emotionally let go of leads and embrace the new adult working chapter in your life?
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting question. So Leeds was a great time for me. I've still got friends, worryingly, 11 years since then. I still speak to them. I think it's around knowing that there are going to be greater and better things out there for you. Like, it was a great time at Leeds, but you will have new experiences. So I think it's just around being open to that, but also understanding what it was you like about Leeds. So that can also form the types of jobs you go into, the roles you go into, where you're living, the friends. And really, like, it's not around emotionally detaching. Like, it's not like Leeds is gone and that. Like, as you know, Sarah, Tom, and everyone in the team are going to be there if you need the support. And you get people like me who appear every sort of decade to talk to you about things. So it's not so much like that's my life and it's gone. You will still have friends from there. There's alumni clubs, there's MAs and MSCs with Leeds as well. So not just so cutthroat and it's gone. But I think look at what you've enjoyed about Leeds and then look to progress with that. It might be that what you actually really enjoy is studying. You might want to look for a postgraduate degree. It might be that you want to teach and develop people. Just have a think about that. It's a really interesting question, Clara. If you'd like, and this is open to everyone as well, my LinkedIn hopefully will be able to be shared on the follow-up links. Feel free to drop me a message and feel free to email me any questions you have. If you're interested in, like I said, around sort of working in recruitment or supply chain, or if you have sort of questions like this that you feel I may not have answered fully, appreciate it. May be quite a few people email me, so do bear with me. And I'm on annual leave next week, so it may take me a little bit of time to come back to you, but I will try and come back to you. There will also just hold off till sort of the end of this week. So there will be some more links coming around. I know there's been some questions on, how do I discuss achievements? How do I discuss responsibilities? How do I answer these questions? There's a whole load of documents and blogs I'm going to send through to you that answer all those questions. Have a look at those. If you're still struggling, reach out to me, reach out to a recruiter, or reach out to the Leeds team. Thank you again to everyone at Leeds team as well. It's been an absolute pleasure and really nice talking to you. And I wish you all the best as well.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Seb. Sorry, just looking at your name and just picked the second bit. Yeah, thank you so much. Hope everyone found that really useful, because I know I found it really useful and I have a job. So, and yeah, so thanks everyone for coming. Sorry we couldn't get through all of the questions. There were a lot of them, but hopefully you'll have found some of them were answered in the presentation, and some of them you can send to the addresses, which I hope will be put on the screen soon. And remember that the Careers Service is here to support all students and all graduates. So if you want to book an appointment with a careers advisor, you can go to mycareer.leeds.ac.uk, where you can book an appointment. You can also get your CV checked through, which I know there are a lot of questions about CVs. There's also an option to get cover letters checked through. So if you were worried about that, there's those resources there for you. There's also a lot of vacancies being posted, graduate and volunteering and all of work experience. So My Career is the place to go. You've also got the Leeds internship program for both graduate and sort of current student internships. And there's also global careers at careerweb.leeds.ac.uk. Coming up next week, which is really exciting is the start of our October careers fairs, which we've called Discover Your Future, where you'll be able to talk to employers in 8 different sectors, which hopefully you can kind of see on the screen which ones are being covered. There's a volunteering fair as well, which is really exciting. So to sign up to that, you'll have to download the Career Fair Plus app, where you will create a profile and then sign on to different sessions with different employers. The point is that we want you to come to as many as possible. Don't just focus on maybe the sector that your degree leads into, because there's jobs for everyone in so many different sectors. So the whole point is to sort of discover a future that maybe you didn't think would be possible with the degree you have. So yeah, that starts next week. And get signed up today, because it's really exciting, and we have 250 plus employers signed up so far, and by the end of the month we'll have probably added more. And yeah, so thank you very much. This was recorded, as I said at the start, so this will be sent to you in a couple of days' time, so feel free to rewatch it, and hopefully you really enjoyed it. So I've been Sarah. Yeah, thanks very much for coming.